And joining us now to talk more about that on if and how this vote could impact the situation on the ground in Yemen is Craig Snyder, President and CEO of World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. Craig, thanks for joining us. This has now passed both chambers, and President Trump expected to veto the measure to end support for the Saudi-led coalition. But what's at stake in terms of the humanitarian crisis there? It's already unimaginable.
It certainly is. It's been described by the United Nations and others as the worst humanitarian crisis in the world at the present time. It's not clear, though, how this affects that crisis, whether it makes things better or worse. There are certainly arguments on both sides as to that. It's also not clear how it relates to sort of the balance of power over war powers between the Congress and the president going forward. As you noted, this is the first time that this use of the War Powers Resolution from 1973 has been invoked by Congress in all those decades. So it's a milestone, but it's really not clear where it leads.
So the question, I suppose, is what kind of message does this actually send in Yemen that Congress does want to end U.S. support there?
Well, it sends a message to the Saudis, and I think they will hear that message. But it is unlikely that would be strong enough for them to change their fundamental policy, which is an effort, as they see it, and indeed as the Trump administration sees it, to avoid Iran becoming a regional hegemon and having, sort of de facto control over the entire Middle East. The Saudis are determined to stop that. The Trump administration is on their side. And indeed, American support for the Saudis in that view started under the Obama administration. So you could say it was a bipartisan policy. So the Saudis, I think, will get the message that Congress is on the other side, but not clear that they'll change their behavior. The question then is, what do the Iranians and their proxies in Yemen do? If they see this as a sign of American weakness, that could actually increase the intensity of the fighting, lessen the possibility of a negotiated settlement, and going back to your first question, actually deepen the humanitarian crisis.
And right now, estimates are that roughly 80% of the population in Yemen is in need of some sort of humanitarian aid. So should there be a shift or perhaps a reallocation of resources here instead of support for the Saudi coalition, maybe divert that U.S. money towards humanitarian aid strictly?
Well, the United States has tried to provide some humanitarian aid, but that's certainly not been the center of gravity of our policy. As a practical matter, with the war going on, including the Saudi and the Saudi coalition airstrike campaign, you really can't get the aid that needs to get to the people on the ground. That's the problem. It's not sort of the absence of the availability of the aid, it's the inability to move it around a war zone and get it to the people who need it. There's really nothing that we can do, the United States can do about that, as long as the conflict goes on. So the priority should be finding a way to end the conflict politically. But that really requires something that doesn't seem on the horizon, and that is some kind of willingness to live together between the Saudis and the Iranians.
All right, Craig Snyder, President and CEO of World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. We thank you so much for your time today.